These are the top 5 custom coiled cables for your mechanical keyboard. If at any point during the video you want to check out any of these 5 cables, there's Amazon links below for the US, UK, Canada, and international links. But let's jump into that number 5 spot. And this is Asceny's custom coiled cable, coming in at only $14.99, so basically in anyone's budget. Now let's start off with what you get in the box and the packaging. Firstly, it's a very pretty box. Then inside, the packaging has the cable folded, but not at a perfect 90-degree angle. This does cause straightening the cable out after you take it out of the packaging significantly harder. So the packaging here isn't great. I mean, the actual box looks fantastic, but seeing as they bent the cable a little bit, that's just kind of a oversight. And as well, they have the rest of the cable folded rather than wrapped. So that is also a little bit of an oversight. You do have to kind of take some time and straighten this cable out after you get it out of the box. This is the only one on the list that has that problem. However, the quality of the cable and the double wrap, which all of the cables on the list are double wrapped, is really good. The quality here of the actual cable itself is very, very good. Closer to much more expensive cables and, well, a lot further away from the cheaper cables. As far as the cable just itself, it feels quite nice and it looks very good. The colors also are very vibrant. So let's talk about the colors. These have a lot of colors at a low price point. The colors include black, white, blue, green, red, pink, and purple. That's pretty much enough to match most people's setups on their keyboards as well as maybe their desk setup. All right, let's talk tightness and uniformity of the coil itself. That's the most important part. This is where it pales in comparison to more expensive cables, but at this price point, this is still a very good deal, especially if you don't want to spend more money on a cable and don't mind having to straighten it out. The coil is a little bit looser than all of the other ones on the list, and the uniformity could be better, but really the uniformity is mainly due to the way that they package it. So maybe using a hair dryer just a little bit to kind of loosen it up and then kind of form it a little bit, you should probably be good, but it will take some time to get this thing straightened out of the box. And that's really the only big con here. Now, for the connections, this does not have the aviator style connection, but what it does have is actual custom plastic connectors on the USB-C and the USB-A side. So it doesn't have any of that heat shrink, which is great because that makes this look quite a bit more expensive. But one of the little issues with this is the end with the USB Type-C is a little bit fatter. So if you have a really tight opening for your keyboard, you may have to modify your keyboard or get a different cable. The end of the USB-C is a little bit chunky. Now, as far as length of the cable from the coil, it's about 4 feet, which is definitely not bad at all considering the price point. And the coil's length here is actually also quite good at 6 inches, which is very good, but it's not super beefy because the diameter isn't super wide. So it is on the thinner side of coils. But again, $14.99, if you're doing a budget build, this may be really, really good, but you'll have to put some work into kind of straightening it out from out of the box. Let's move on to the number 4 spot. And this is Tez Cables E-Series, coming in at a price tag of $29.99. Let's jump into what you get in the box and how the packaging is. Inside the box, you have some foam that's cut out for the cables, which both has the coiled section of it at a perfect 90-degree angle, which is great. And then you have the length part, which is separated because this does have the aviator connector. The packaging is great here to remove it from the box, plug it in together, and it's perfectly symmetrical and uniform. So there's no problems with the cable out of the box here. Now, the quality of the cable itself and the wrapping, this is double wrapped again, is really good, but it's not as good as Asceny's or the other cables on this list. Not that it's bad, but it's just not quite as good as the other ones on the list. Now, as for the color options, there is a ton of them, including black, white, blue, red, white on black, laser purple, lime green, pink, purple, and black on white. Now, as for the tightness of the coil, this is actually really, really good here, being quite tight, especially considering the price point, and it's very, very uniform. This is very impressive. This also keeps shape well and snaps back in when pulled apart. Now, that cannot be said for the Asceny cable, which if you stretch it all the way apart, it's probably going to stay like that. Although if you pull any coiled cable completely apart, it's probably not going to survive it. Now, for the connections here, there is good and bad. Now, firstly, this has a high quality metal aviator connection, which looks absolutely awesome. But a downside here is the USB Type-C is heat shrink wrapped, which just doesn't look the best. It looks a little bit budget. But on the flip side here, you don't have a thick end to that USB Type-C at all. So if you have a more narrow connection, there's not gonna be any problems here. Now, as for the length of this cable from the coiled section, This is extremely impressive here, hitting 5 feet and 4 inches. That is very long. Again, for the price point, very, very long. And I think this is the longest cable on the list. So that's impressive. Now, as for the coiled section, the length of it is a little bit less than 5 inches, and the diameter, while bigger than Asceny's, is still fairly small in comparison to most coiled cables out there. So this is a smaller, lower profile coil, but some of you may prefer that over the thicker one, so that totally comes into personal preference. But moving on to the number 3 spot, this is the GunMjo Pro Custom Coiled Cable, coming in at around 20 bucks. That's a good price. All right, what's in the box? After opening the box, you have a sealed bag with the coil section kept at a 90-degree angle, which is fantastic, as well as being wrapped in plastic, which is also kind of cool. And then you have the other length section also wrapped up in there, not folded, which is great. There was absolutely no problems with uniformity after taking this out of the packaging. Now, as far as quality of the cable itself, this is really, really good here. This is the impressive section where you start getting into really nice cables. The other ones are really, really good as well, but these are like primo. This is like top end stuff. The double wrap is very, very perfect. Everything's pretty, everything's elegant. It's nice and thick, it feels great, but most importantly, it looks absolutely awesome. Now, the color options are limited here, and that's only the really big con of this. The different colors are carbon black, black, white, blue, purple, and red. So those are all the options you have for colors, although most of the colors, being the red, purple, and blue, they seem to have issues with stocking. So if you do want to check this one out, check the link below, but I've seen them go in and out of being in stock. So I don't know about that. Now, as far as the coil, the tightness and uniformity is absolutely great here. It snaps right back into place when pulled apart or moved slightly. The uniformity was also basically perfect here, so really no issues at all with this. A high-end cable for sure. But the crazy thing is that price point of around $20, I think the colors may be more expensive, although I can't even check right now because I don't think any of them are in stock. Now let's talk connections. This does have a nice big aviator metal connection, which looks absolutely awesome. However, this does have heat shrink around the Type-C end, which was a little bit disappointing. However, again, this does give it a nice small profile, so if you did need to fit into smaller openings, well, there you have it. And it totally depends if that really bothers you or not, or if not having a custom plastic end is not a big deal to you. Now, for the length, this comes in at 4 feet and 5 inches, which is totally respectable. But to note, that's almost a foot shorter than the Tez cable, which is interesting. However, this made up for the length, which is actually, the length is not bad, but this did make up for it with the actual coiled section itself, which is fat. This is the single biggest coiled section on the list. So if you like fat cables, this absolutely is that. It is 6 inches in length and it is a very wide diameter. So if you like a thick coiled section, this definitely has that. But moving on to the number 2 spot, this is the CableMod Pro coiled cable coming in with a list price of $49.90, but I got mine for around $35, so it may be on sale consistently. So check the links below if you do want to check out what the current pricing is, but let's start it off with what's in the box. First of all, it's got great packaging. Inside the box, there is a top and bottom plastic shell keeping the coiled section perfectly uniform, and the length section of the cable is curled up. Not only this, but they also gave a rubber cable channel that has stickiness, like a 3M stickiness on the bottom, that you can mount on your desk to then straighten your cable even more. That was a nice touch. I really, really like that. The quality of the cable here is extremely good. The double wrap crisscross is absolutely perfect. Zero imperfections anywhere on the cable. Very, very good quality control here. This coiled cable is what I think most people are going to buy, but you might be thinking, well, is there a catch? Maybe they don't have a lot of good colors. Let's talk about the colors. The color options are absolutely enormous here. Having Spectrum Blue, Blueberry Cheesecake, Carbon Gray, Dominator Yellow, Galaxy Blue, Glacier White, Lemon Ice, Lime Sorbet, Midnight Black, Orange-sicle, Republic Red, Rum Raisin, Strawberry Cream, and Viper Green. The last one's kind of a razor thing, right? Like Viper and Razor's green. That's a lot of colors. That's an extremely large amount of colors, and the color options look really, really nice. So I like that a lot. Tightness of the coiled section is really, really good here. It snaps together just a little bit better than the previous coiled cable, and the uniformity here is absolutely on point. It is absolutely perfect. So taking it out of the box and you have that perfect straight 90-degree coiled cable, which looks great. Now, as for the connections, this is basically perfect. This has a large aviator connection, which looks absolutely fantastic, painted like mine. The cable that I have is painted. It looks great. The ends are great with no heat shrink. You have custom ends. I think it's plastic with then metal over it. I can't tell if the end is metal or it's plastic, but if it is plastic, it's very high quality plastic. Overall though, really good having the custom ends of the cable while also not making it too thick, because that can still fit into smaller cavities for your keyboards. But let's talk length. From the coiled section, this measures 4 feet and 6 inches, which is very respectable, especially considering the overall quality of this cable. The coiled section is just under 6 inches, which is a very good length, and it's considerably thick. The diameter is good. It's not quite as thick as the previous cable, but it is still quite nice and thick. You're not gonna have any problems with the thickness if you do like a thicker cable or a coil section. This is exactly what you would expect from a higher end coiled cable. Now, like I said before, because of the different color options, the overall quality of this cable, and the price that at least I got it at, which I think it goes on sale or it stays on sale most of the time. The list price may not be what it's always at, but I'm not sure on that, so check the links below. But I think this is what most people are going to buy. It's just really, really solid for the money. But if you're a baller not on a budget, let's move on to the #1 spot. The best coil cable for your mechanical keyboard comes from Glorious, coming in at a price tag of $42.50 all the way up to $59.99. That's a lot of money for a cable. What does it give you? Well, firstly, what's in the box? This has great packaging. The box is pretty, as you'd expect coming from Glorious. Inside, there's a plastic tray that allows the coiled section to maintain its shape and uniformity perfectly. The length section of the cable is also curled up nicely, but this time it's a little bit looser than the other cables, so it's a little bit of a wider curl, which is really, really nice because it makes it easier to kind of take it out of the box and just, well, set it up perfectly. Absolutely no problems with uniformity or snapping into certain sections just from taking it out of the box immediately. Now, the quality of the cable is exactly what you'd expect from this price point, which is high. The double wrap is absolutely fantastic. Quality is basically perfect here, as good as the previous cable. But the big thing here is that compared to the previous cable and all the other cables on this list, this cable overall is significantly thicker. And I mean significantly thicker than all the other cables. So if you do like a more beefy design, it just makes this look very expensive overall, and it looks really good with a nice metal custom keyboard. I mean, it really looks good. I love the overall thickness of this. Now, color options here are absolutely fantastic. In my opinion, the hues and shades of the colors they did are super, super nice. Let's go over those colors. These include black, red, white, cobalt blue, electric blue, forest green, glorious gold, nebula purple, pixel pink. And again, those shades, I mean, you saw them on screen, those shades look really, really good. Definitely more of an upscale shading of it, of those colors, if that makes sense. Now, the tightness of the coil is by far the best on the list, and that is by far. The tightness is extremely good. This rubber bands back into its uniform space like no other cable I've actually used before. It's quite crazy. You open this up and it just snaps right back in. That really helps with uniformity. Even if you bump your cable a little bit, it snaps right back together. Super, super easy to make this look really good. That's a big section that I really, really like. Now, connections here are really good. This has a fat aviator connection, as you would expect at this price point. And then the ends do have custom plastic on both of the ends, which do look nice. There is some heat shrink, but that goes inside of the plastic ends, and then it just shows up a little bit, but it doesn't look cheap at all because you're only seeing really the end of it. Now, the USB Type-C end is a little bit thicker than the other cables, but not quite as thick as the Asceny cable, which is super thick. So this will probably still fit 99%, well, probably 95% of your keyboards. But yeah, connections overall, quite good. Now, the length of the cable, again, from that coil is quite good here, hitting just shy of 5 feet at 4 feet and 10 inches. And that's very impressive considering not only the quality of this cable, but also the additional thickness compared to, well, every other cable that I've used. Now, the coil itself has just over 6 inches of length, which is quite large, similar to some of the other ones on the list, although I think this is the longest, and it has a nice thick diameter. Now, it's literally within millimeter of the GunMjo cable. So I did say that was the biggest, and that still technically is the biggest coil, but it's very, very close. So they're both quite large, beefy cables, although this one's definitely gives a little bit of a bigger vibe because of the overall thickness of the cable itself. Overall, if you want a really special and very luxurious custom coiled cable, this one is definitely delivering. Again, if you want to check out any of the 5 cables in this video, there's Amazon links below for the US, UK, Canada, and international links. Tried to give some cables for everyone. There is the Asceny for the budget, and I think it's a really good quality cable. Just the packaging could absolutely use some work. But yeah, this was Consumer Tech Review, and I'll see you guys in the next video.